You're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, and welcome to my weekly review. This is my disclaimer that this video is on YouTube and it's made for adults only. It's not an adult video, but it's not made for children. And so that's my disclaimer. If I told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? No. So you're all big boys and girls. Do your own due diligence. Anyway, this is a daily chart of the Nasdaq, and it's my weekly review. So I'll be looking at mostly weekly charts. I'm going to try to do this in 10 minutes. You can see that since 2023 started, it's like a flip of the switch. The calendar change, and this thing has just been roaring higher. It traded above its 200 simple moving average for the first time since January 18, 2022. And it did that in grand fashion here on Friday, as it was up another 109 points, nearly 1%. And it's 1% exactly above its 200 simple moving average. Now it has to stay above it, right? It can't get 1% above it and get rejected. It needs to have the train keep rolling, and that's what we hope it will do here. You can see the kind of the bottoming pattern here. This is the low, and then a retest, and then it's been going higher ever since. You can see it was up 4.32% last week. The S&P 500. Similar action. The Nasdaq has been the leader in 2023, but the S&P is further along, as it's let's check it here, 2.9% above its 200 simple moving average. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy there. Anyway, I do not trade indexes. I like stocks, and I'm going to go to the oil and gas stocks. I know people really don't like oil and gas, but the field service stocks have been performing well, and they're not going to be ignored. This one here is trading well above its 10 EMA, 3.8%, keeps making new highs. This is Tidewater. This is one that I do own and one of my favorites, and it's one of the top stocks on our MC stock chart list there, and it's performing well. OII is another one. The oil and gas field services stock, group is the number 2 group here, as it's been performing well. This is OII making new highs. One of the stocks in the oil and gas, this is the Chevron, which is in the oil and gas integrated group. They pulled the okie doke on people last week. By Thursday, it went up, I don't know what, 8%, because they had a $75 billion buyback program. And the next day they miss earnings and the stock tanks on higher volume. Do not like that kind of PR from the Chevron people. This is one I own in my retirement account, but I do not like that type of management. Screw them. People jumped into this thing on the buyback, thought that earnings would be great. I guess they don't know what else to do with their money but buy back shares of stock. But they pulled the okie doke on people, and then people bought into it on Thursday and got slammed on Friday. So heck with Chevron. That's terrible PR. Anyway, Tesla, this stock has been on a roll. This is the top performing group. The group itself, the auto manufacturer, is up 32% this year. And it's not only Tesla that's moving higher. I got to show the weekly chart. It was up 33% last week. And you could see that hammer candle. This thing looks like it's going higher. I don't put targets on, or price targets on stocks, because they're going to do what they want to do, regardless if I say it's going to 200 or 225. The stock has momentum, as evidenced by the the blue bars here, the volume. And this is why you have to be flexible. Everybody hated this thing, including me, when it was diving. Who wants to buy a stock that's going from this is another thing, that if you have rules, like I have rules, I sell at the 50. And if I sold at the 50, this stock, it was way back here. And I got to go way back to when it crossed its 50. I don't know, it was like 350. And so you buy back when it crosses back above this 50 here, and it's at 150. So, you're at your $200 to the good. But anyway, that's why I have rules. I sell when stocks are diving, and you can always buy them back. So, you don't have to marry these things. They're not pieces of paper. There's digital numbers, and I know you're pressing your mouse like crazy buying and selling these things. Anyway, that was one of the stocks that was doing well. I wanted to show Ford versus Ferrari, because Ferrari is doing great. This thing is, I got to show the weekly. This is a weekly review. You can see this base. It's been consolidating here since I don't know, November of 21, sound familiar? That's when the Nasdaq started tanking. But this is a nice symmetrical base here. I like Ferrari, and I have to show Ford just because, you know, this little double bottom, and it was up 7% last week. Not bad. Still 37% off of its high. And you got to see Ford versus Ferrari. Christian Bale does an excellent job. Excellent flick. And I digress. I'm never going to get through in 10 minutes talking about movies. Anyway, this is Lucid. It was only up 65% last week on rumors that some Saudi company might buy them. But I don't get involved with stocks that, you know, negative earnings. They're not making any money. Anyway, moving on to the steel stock. Steel Dynamics is one of our stocks at MC Stock Charts on our leaderboard there. And this one reported earnings. The earnings weren't that great, but the stock responded well, and that's all that counts. Nucor, same thing. You can see the earnings are not that great, but the stock, you know, responded well. And, you know, price pays, as our friend Brian Shannon says, you know, follow the price. Price is what pays you. And here's Cleveland Cliffs is up more than 30% this year. And they report February 14th, Valentine's Day. So hopefully there will be a lucky charm for them. We got to look at the weekly here. And this is just forming a base, Cleveland Cliffs. You got to listen to their CEO and their conference calls. The guy is a character. Anyway, we're going to move on to the miners. This is one that I don't talk about enough. This is Kamiko, and I got to go to the weekly. This is a weekly review. And you can see the consolidation here, just kind of in a trade range, trying to form a base here. This thing still needs some time. Another one that I like is Southern Copper, and this one shows a little base on base pattern here. You go to the daily and you can see that recently it had this run up, it broke out, and then it's pulling back to its moving average and lighter volume. And that's what you want to see in an uptrend, right? This thing's definitely in an uptrend. It's showing power with volume to the upside, then pulling back to a moving average on the downside. And that's what we want to see. Rio is another one in the mining and metal space, which is one of the top groups in 2023. You can see this. This is a daily chart. I'll get to the weekly chart, but you can see this cup with handle pattern in the breakout here. They have earnings February 22nd, and we got to go to the weekly chart on Mr. Rio. You can see the base on base pattern there, and it's trying to break out. Anyway, that's it for the miners. I want to go to retail. Retail is one of my favorite. I like going to the malls, and you kind of do some Peter Lynch style investigative work on these things. This is the Dillard's, we call it the Dentist, DDS. You can see this base here. You know, Nordstrom's talked about weak holiday sales, but it's not affecting the stocks. Anyway, you just got to follow price. Like I say, you can see this little cup shape, little shakeout in the handle here, back to the 10 EMA, but they report earnings on the 22nd. Anyway, I did discuss Nordstrom's, and they did warn of weak holiday sales. The stock was still up 5.4% last week, so go figure, right? Macy's is another one in the group. It was up 1.4% last week. You can see this little consolidation here in the weekly chart. We'll go to the daily. This is the number one group, by the way, the retail department stores. There's only 6 stocks in the group, and I'm highlighting 3 of them here. You can see the little cup with handle here. So Macy's reports on the 22nd as well. I got to go through some other retail because I'm a retail geek. This is Boot Barn. They reported, you know, pretty weak earnings. You can see the decelerating sales growth and the you know, lack of earnings and not great guidance. But guess what? The stock was up 18% last week. And another one that, you know, I like is CROX, and it's up 150% since July. But it made a high and then pulled back the last 2 weeks. And that's exactly what you want to see. This is what I talked about Southern Copper, the breakout with volume here and here, and then pull back to moving averages and lighter volume. They report February 16th. So that's enough for retail. I think I've done enough there. And the drugs, I'm a drug guy too. Not a druggie. I just like drug stocks. I think drugs, biotech and semiconductors have a lot of innovation and have a lot of potential for this year and beyond. VRTX, this is one of my favorites. It's a bigger company, but you can see it's just kind of grinds higher, right? Recently, it's formed this little cup shape base. Maybe it'll have a shakeout, the weak hands here, and form a handle. They report earnings February 7th. That's definitely one that I like. BMRN, I just put this one on here because it just continues to make new highs. It's got momentum. You know, momentum traders love this one. So good for that stock. RVNC, I have to put this one in because it's it's got the Daxify, the anti-wrinkle cream, and this is doing really well. It went up on the announcement of the drug, and now it's formed this base and just broken out higher. And you know, it's a competition to Botox, so I'm pretty sure this is going to do pretty well. And TGTX, I have to include this one. I entered it in the Cubby Bears contest this year only because this is a multiple sclerosis drug. They just launched it last week, so it's all about, you know, marketing for them and seeing how the product performs. But they have the best product at the cheapest price, and the insurance covers it for multiple sclerosis. So I think it'll do well, but we'll have to wait and see. It's definitely a speculative play. And we'll just see. It's supposed to be like a $500 million drug in the next couple of years, but they have to prove themselves. Just like the markets, you have to allow them to prove themselves. And this one has not proved itself yet. The last group that I'm going to cover is the semiconductor space. And this is definitely the haves and the have-nots. I'm going to go through a couple of haves here. This is Aehr, definitely, you know, did the old Debo Samuel, you know, juke, plant the foot in the ground, and then fricking run higher, spike the ball in the end zone for a touchdown. ACLS is another one. This is one I got to brag a little bit. I don't talk about gains or, you know, performance in stocks, whatever. They're just stocks. But this one we had at MC Stock Charts at $80. It ran up. We sold it at 88, took a 10% gain, and then it came back to its pivot point here, and we bought it again. And it ran up, just screamed up, you know, unbeknownst to me or anybody else. I mean, this thing just ran higher with volume, and now we're in a good position just sitting on gains here. It had an inside day on Friday. So this is definitely one of the haves. STM is another one. They reported strong earnings. You could see the volume, the power of this thing moving higher. I got to look at the weekly chart. Sorry, this is a weekly review. And you can see that still it broke out, but it's still within a base here. So this thing, I believe, has more room to run. But those are stocks that I like. Another one in the group, ALGM, they report earnings on the 31st. I believe that's Tuesday. And you can see this long consolidation, that little shakeout, which forms a handle, and then the breakout. But to me, this thing hasn't even moved yet. I believe it's got more room in it too. But, you know, I'm a perma bull, so what do you expect? Anyway, and then the have-nots, you know, the penthouse and the outhouse, these stocks, Wolf Speed, I don't know what happened to this thing. This is formerly Cree, and this thing, this is what happens when, you know, you can see the sales growth, 57, 54, 25. You got that decelerating sales growth and a decelerating stock price. Intel, I think the best thing to do when Intel reports is buy AMD calls, because AMD's best days are when Intel reports. Just, you know, another confirmation of how AMD's taking market share. Intel is just a dog and living in the outhouse. Anyway, that's it for me. Just wanted to shout out our friend Mike Webster. His dog Georgia passed away last week, so we're feeling for you, Mike. Time only heals those wounds, and just thinking about your brother. Anyway, we never give up.